As an introduction to my testimony, I want you to know that torture is involved, nudity is involved, bad language is involved, adult topics are involved. Anybody I would say under the age of 15 should not be listening. Nor should review the evidence that I'm going to present. Every single bit of evidence that I present, the documentaries, were all events that were televised and came to be known by me after the events that happened to me unfolded. So I'm not the only one. They're just letting you know that not only is what I'm telling you possible, but that it really did happen.
I have something that I need to, say to the people here locally and the citizens of the United States, of which I am a freeborn one, and even to the people of the world. I am not aware. I am not delusionary. I'm not hallucinogenic. I'm not any one of the many slanders or libels that have been told about me. I'm a man of God that had something really horrible happen to him, and that God has sustained me alive this long to make sure that I stand up in order to tell people what to do, make sure it doesn't happen again. My testimony is true. I've included it with a copy of this video. And my relationship with the Almighty is one of intimate knowledge. I've received the Spirit of God. And He's guided me all these days. And I've asked Him many times during the past few years of incredible torture, why He allows His children to suffer so much, and why people doing so wickedly on the planet are not dying in the most horrific possible ways. I've screamed to the Almighty, as to how come He's not making an example of people that are violating public trust so greatly as to oppress mass millions of people. And every time I have thought of vengeance, the Lord has blessed me with visions of what would happen in the future if I actually did those things. And so I am going to follow Christ and His example. I'm going to follow Him through Gethsemane, my Gethsemane that I've been going through the past several years, actually. And I'm going to follow His example. I'm going to, by God's grace, find the love of God greater than the hatred of man. This is what's happened to me. I went in for surgery in May 2004, and 2 homicide attempts on my life occurred there. And this is how it occurred. It occurred the first time by an incompatible blood transfusion, of which I signed a transfusion permission form stating specifically that no O-negative blood was to be given me. If I was ever to need any blood, it would be an exact match on the O-positive only. And my $10 trillion suit and affidavits elucidate as to the facts of what happened, but I want you to know that they gave me an incompatible blood transfusion against my express written and verbal wishes. And they did it intentionally to murder me. Incompatible blood, when as little as 60 milliliters enters your system, can cause an acute transfusion reaction, which basically causes your lungs to fill up and you suffocate on your own bodily fluids. have a cardiac arrest. Well, it happened to me twice. The first time as a direct result of the fact that they gave me a transfusion that I didn't need against my wishes with the intent to murder me. And the second time was when they tied me down on a gurney, stuck an innovation tube down my throat, so I could not scream for help. And both arms and legs tied down to the metal rails of the gurney, and they shut the machines off. And a young, I don't know what to call him, he was a male individual, proceeded to laugh as pink fluid came gushing out of my mouth, and I pounded with my fingers as hard as I could, trying to get somebody's attention to the fact that I was suffocating, as if they didn't know. A woman with her back to me, watching the monitor, basically said that acting like a wild man will not save me. At the time, I actually regretted that I couldn't tell my wife I loved her one more time. And at the time, I committed to keeping my spirit into the mighty hands of God. I called on the Lord Yehoshua in my thoughts, because I couldn't say anything aloud. And I woke up yet again. And 2 years merely went by before my memory actually recovered from the fact that I had been without oxygen for 5 minutes one time and 3 minutes the other reportedly. My wife confirmed that I had 2 cardiac arrests, so the medical record doesn't cite it. And I distinctly remember the 2 separate occasions. It was not an accident. It was intentional. The giving of the blood was intentional. I did not hold the person that administered it to me, a young intern, young nurse. She didn't know any better. She was just following orders. And it was while it was given to me, mostly while I was unconscious, just like my affidavit said. At any rate, when I finally remembered everything that had happened, both incidences, and the fact that the second incident was intentional, I immediately signed an affidavit. Again, during this time I was so ill, in recovery. And I actually went back to work shortly after the operation, but suddenly my health took a dive down even worse than before I went in for surgery. Again, this is just a minor surgery to correct, my septum that had deviated and was blocking my airway so I couldn't breathe properly. Except through my mouth. And at any rate, the incident caused temporary amnesia. And I didn't remember everything, but when I finally started to remember what happened in the hospital, I not only tried to notify the authorities, and I did notify the authorities, but I sent my first affidavit, by fax straight to local authorities, both in the state, both in Idaho and in Washington. And not one phone call, not one investigation. At the same time, I told my wife exactly what had happened, that it wasn't an accident, that we needed to hire an attorney right away and make certain that these individuals are not free to do this to anyone else. And she did not help me. And having lived with my wife for 10 years, that didn't make any sense to me. She had always been opportunistic in the way of money. In fact, I'd turned over every single paycheck that I'd made in real estate to her, and she spent, every penny on pretty much whatever she wanted. Occasionally she'd throw me a bone, just making sure that I continued to be a good slave. But for the most part, it was basically her spending money on whatever she wanted. And I didn't mind because I loved it. I can remember when I was working for her 10th anniversary present, when I was extremely sick, extremely fatigued, and I kept working extra hard because our tenant had come to me and told me that he had to leave because she had tried, basically, not tried, but she had propositioned him, and he didn't feel it was right. So he, as a dignified man, was moving on. And so I worked extra hard for a testimony just to remind my wife how much I loved her. And hoped that that was just, I don't know, temporary insanity on her part. I didn't tell her that I knew. And I went ahead and gave her that 10th anniversary present, despite all this that had gone on. And I started becoming extremely ill. Again, I'm not that old. I'm not even 42 yet. I started getting extremely ill when I was 36, so I was barely getting out of school. About the same time, my wife started accusing me of maybe seeing something at school, of which since the day I met her, I've not been with a single solitary soul other than her. And not that I want a badge, but out of love. And not that I hadn't been propositioned, but that I wanted to believe that it's more important for people to be committed to one another than for, any one person to, throw it all away. I wanted to believe in the concept of growing old together and greater and greater love, and not just believe, but that's how I felt. At any rate, the feeling obviously wasn't mutual, but what happened was, over time, more and more my memory came back. I didn't understand why my wife wasn't hiring an attorney for one. I didn't understand a lot of things that were going on. Phone calls in which she would say, "He's here in the room, I can't talk now." I thought she was having an affair just based on the fact that what my tenant had told me. And plus, just the way she was acting. But I still didn't know what was going on. And I took a medication by the name of Cymbalta, and it actually relieved intense migraines I was having at the time, muscle convulsions I was having at the time, spasms, I had chronic diarrhea. When I typed in all the symptoms that I was experiencing, the following came up: hepatitis, leukemia, poisoning, and eventually a rare, what is considered rare but it's not, it's a lie. It's a common genetic trait known as Wilson's disease, and the reason I know it's common now is because of how much research I've done. And I can tell just by looking at people and looking them in the eyes, and their mannerisms, their speech. There's all kinds of signs that indicate people have this genetic trait, but it's so profitable for the medical and pharmaceutical industries, they're not telling people the truth. And as a result, I've suffered unbelievably. The hepatitis was ruled out with a bunch of blood tests that I had done by a local internist. And the internal medicine specialist diagnosed me instead with infectious mononucleosis. And you can read my affidavit, sent it far and wide. And my reply was, how is that possible? I've been so ill, and I haven't even been able to be intimate with my wife, and, let alone anyone else. I've been bedridden, and for quite some time. And he just kind of looked at me all skeptical. At any rate, when I told my wife, she all of a sudden started acting real strange like. If I had a guilty conscience, you know, I mean, I'm one person that's capable of a 4.0 average. I'm not like, you know, so naive that I would go and tell my wife if I had a guilty conscience that I had been sick, and she knew better. I've been bedridden. I've been sick for a long time, and didn't really know why. Like researching because once again, I had amnesia. And, so she wanted me to watch this. I didn't understand why she wanted me to watch this thing, but it was a show on women who poison. And again, remember, I had amnesia. So I was like, basically, when it started, I was like, why do you want me to watch this morbid, crap, basically? And she goes, no particular reason, but I want you to watch it all the way through. Give me your opinion. You know? She goes, well, what do you think about those women, that have poisoned their husbands and stuff afterwards? And I go, well, some of the stories basically made their men like as if they, almost deserved it, So, it's not right. It's not something that should be done, but what do you, I kept asking her why she wanted me to render an opinion, first of all, and why she wanted me to watch it. And, my wife, ex-wife, whatever she is a very manipulative person. And I would have to say demonstrates the history and attitude of a psychopath. That's a hard thing for me to say because I really love my wife. But she's not right. She's got something real wrong with her. And at any rate, unbelievable as it is. And, we went through so much that I can't even hardly even say it, but I'm going to say it. I couldn't handle the fact that she wasn't helping me at all. And by helping me, I mean helping save other people's lives from murderers loose. And hiring an attorney, to basically put the hospital in check for trying to bill me for attempted homicide, along with the other hospitals that were covering it up, right? So, my friends from Westbrook and her basically started, colluding and conspiring. And again, the Westbrooks were manipulated by my wife, I now know, because the reason why she wasn't helping me is she was guilty of conspiring with the homicidal maniacs on the loose here locally and in our hospitals. And they have the need to appear, like they're really decent human beings, all of them. So they'll give you quite a show about how wonderful they are, but underneath the scenes, man, they're not wonderful. These are very, very sick people, and it is true. This is really what happened. My wife, when my memory finally came back to me, used to threaten me regularly. And occasionally just outright come out and say that she could murder me and get away with it. And I just thought they were like things that people say, like little kids, when they say I hate you, is because they're in one of their moods or something. And I thought, because of my wife's age, that she was going through menopause. And that it was just something that would pass. At any rate, she would threaten me regularly. About 2000, 2001 to 2002 in the school year in which I graduated here locally with a 2-year degree. She started accusing me of stealing somebody, and I told her I'd take a lie detector test. After all, I was working full-time with her at the same job during the day. And then I was taking a full-time class schedule, and then I was coming home at night. There wasn't any, even if I was prone to that kind of tendency, which I'm not. I told her I'd take a lie detector test just to reassure her. And, no problem. And she didn't believe the class schedule that she knew where I was. That's point being, she knew where I was 24/7. My wife was very insecure because, in her own words, that every man she'd ever met, slept around on her, and plus that her own father had been quite a womanizer at times. That's again typical of what's happened, and I didn't find out until later the hard way. I prayed to God so many times why He didn't show me in advance, and the only reason that has come to mind is that I wouldn't have had the courage or the passion to do what I'm doing in order to make sure that this does not happen to other people, in order to warn other citizens, in order to improve health care, in order to move upon the public to make certain that the corruption ceases by the proper administration of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And, no more wannabes, no more impersonators, but the people that really know God, the real deal. And anyway, so I in the school year of 2002, noticed that in our new house, in the garage, some mice had eaten away the weather stripping the outside garage door. So I went to Spirit Link, a hardware store, and got a big old box of Decon rat poison, and one of the large ones, right? And I brought it home, and I opened it up, and my wife picked it up, kind of looked at the contents on the inside, and she goes, "Where'd you get this?" And I go, Spirit Lake hardware store, and I go, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, they stopped making rat poison like this years ago." I go, "What do you mean years ago?" And she said, "Well, they dye rat poison now because too many people ended up dead, from it." And I go, "Well, how did you?" And I didn't remember all this when I filed my first affidavit. This is all stuff that I finally remembered after everything that's happened, and I have to set it all straight. That this is what happened. And so turns out that she had dated a male nurse, apparently, that had worked in an emergency room or something like this, and basically I told her that people often die that appear to die of natural causes have actually been poisoned to death, but they don't want to tell the public because they don't want so many people in the public knowing that you can just go out and buy poison that's basically untraceable and makes people, sick and die. Most people don't think that their loved ones would be poisoning them, but it's been something that happens down through the years and down through the ages, and wasn't something that entered my mind because A, I wasn't cheating on her, and B, I always worked really hard to make sure she had everything she wanted. And would always, basically praise her, and I cooked for her every day. Anytime she needed a massage, I gave her a massage. It was a regular part of our daily ritual for me to rub her feet and even after working 9 to 20 hours or more in a day. And anyway, comment went in every now and the other, so I found out she dated a male nurse that knew that people had gotten poisoned and stuff. Again, I didn't remember this for, many years after not many, but over a couple of years after the incident, which led me to be so sick that I had to go in for surgery in the first place. Anyway, so I put the poison in the garage and I checked it the next day and the whole box was empty. And I'm like, I come in and tell my wife, man, we have a major infestation in the garage. And, I'm going to have to go get more. So I think I bought like 2 or 3 more huge boxes of this stuff. And about a couple of days later, again, keep in mind, I was working, 40 to 60 hours a week during the day. I was working a full-time class schedule at school at night. I was barely getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep a day, and plus I really loved my wife. And so I come home because a professor had canceled class for an emergency. And all of a sudden I see something, when I came in the door, boiling on the stove. Well, that drew my attention, first of all, because I was hungry. And second of all, because my wife, that wasn't her thing. I did the cooking, and she kind of did the cleanup. That was our part of the relationship, and it worked pretty well. Because I grew up in restaurants, and I'm a decent cook. But anyway, I go in because it's an unusual thing to see something cooking on the stove that I didn't put there. Very unusual. That probably only happened maybe a handful of times during my entire relationship. So I went in there and I lift the lid, and this weird smell comes out of the boiling water, and I look down, and the very bottom of this boiling water was these little black, half-inch, blackish, brownish, pellets. And I don't know why. I must just say that I had to find out the hard way of what was going on here in America in order to have the passion and the courage to stand up and tell everything. But I did not make the connection. I know now exactly what it was. It was the boxes of pellets, the rat poison, being boiled right on the stove. It didn't make the connection at all, man. It was some kind of weird aromatherapy because she was into these things like box flower remedies and shortly after that, it wasn't too long before all this happened that she had suckered me into taking out a huge life insurance policy. And more money than either one of us had ever had. Right? And at any rate, so accusing me about sleeping around and then the life insurance and then the poison disappearing and then the poison being boiled on the stove and then and again. When you really love somebody, if you were doing anything wrong, you might be a little suspicious. But I wasn't. I did nothing but love on her. If I had ever smacked her or hurt her or anything like that, I might have been, maybe she had a reason to do this. But you think about how greedy our culture is, 500,000 reasons is good enough reason for most people. And anyway, so I didn't make the connection that when she was buying two identical gallons of orange juice, she would put her initials on one and mine on the other, and when she would be out of her orange juice at night and send me down to the fridge to go get her some, she would ask, did you pour it out of mine? And I'd be like, the times that I would say, well, no, dear, yours was out. And so I shared with some of mine. She would all of a sudden, again, I didn't make this connection, but she would all of a sudden just say, well, I changed my mind. I really don't want orange juice. And she wouldn't drink it. Anyway, I didn't remember all of this until after my wife and I, we hadn't divorced, but we separated because of the stress of the fact that I found out she had lied when I asked for my medical records from NIBH when the Westbrook and her had basically colluded and conspired to deliver me to the mental ward unit, in which they tried to poison me to death there, not only by a legal prescription called Seroquel that carries lethal side effects for anybody with liver complications, of which I obviously had at the time. Not only did I have jaundice in my hands and my face, but my eyes, my yellow sclera, and I have elevated liver transphase, the enzyme in your liver indicating you've got hepatic issues, as well as gallstones in my gallbladder. So these physicians knew I had liver issues, and they still prescribed medication that says you do not prescribe somebody with liver conditions that medication because it carries lethal side effects. It can be lethal, right? But even though I told them that my whole mouth swelled up, my tongue and my face turned red and everything from taking as little as 25 milligrams of this, everybody just wanted me to keep on taking something that I had read had lethal side effects, and I know is documented to have caused death. Nobody should have to take toxic substances. Nobody should have to put anything in their body that they don't want to. Nobody has the right to do, as far as I'm concerned, that's aggravated assault of the worst kind. Just because they're not hitting you doesn't mean they're not doing damage to your organs. And first of all, these medications really need to be approved for human ingestion if the FDA was required to eat the things that they were approving, and manufacturers. They wouldn't be approved for human ingestion for anybody if the manufacturers, the pharmacists, the prescribers, all the people that are forcing everyone else to eat this stuff had to eat it themselves first. Wouldn't be on the market, wouldn't be available. But that's a whole other reason why I filed the suit. Anyway, and again, it's all fulfillment of the scriptures for people who know the Bible, for by thy pharmaceutical medications will all nations succeed. Revelations 18:23. The word sorcery there is in the Greek pharmakia, and basically the Lord revealed to me that it basically refers to medications that are of a psychotropic nature. Medications to alter perception of reality. Not things like, penicillin and stuff. But regardless, these things are not good. They're not proper. Many people are dying from them. And it's intentional. And it's the reason why I filed my complaint. But another reason why I filed my complaint, other than the fact that I shouldn't be losing my reputation, my home, my credit, my ability to work. I'm at least temporarily disabled. I can't concentrate on anything else as long as I know that they're torturing people to death in our hospitals and murdering them in so many ways across this nation, and nobody's doing anything about it. American citizens are being murdered basically on a daily basis across our nation. Not just by, loose maniacs on the streets, but by people parading around with letters after their names, calling themselves, physicians. Anyway, so I went ahead and finally remembered after I prayed to God when everything was going